Today we tackle this question. Is your technology stack helping or hindering your business's agility? We're joined by Holger Mueller, VP and Principal Analyst for Constellation Research, award-winning CIO Lloyd of Brock Group, the leading provider of industrial specialty services, and President and CTO of Infor, the one and only Soma. Welcome, everyone. Let's dive right in. Lloyd, what are some of your advice and recommendations for aligning IT with business so that the organization as a whole can successfully navigate that journey towards Agile?
It's really the leader's job is to figure out and identify what are those components that are unique, that create the most value for the organization, and then how do we address those? And a lot of times, I get discussions with some of my team over, oh my gosh, they're going to go build this Access database, or they're going to build this. I say it's a great opportunity for us to discover their thoughts and what they think is valuable to them, that we then can take that and then model it into a larger scale capability within the organization. So I think it's being humble and open enough to understand I don't know everything by a long shot, but there are people out there in the field that do, and they're trying their best to figure out ways to do it. But hopefully with the technologies available and the experiences that we have, we can identify, hey, these 2 or 3 things are really critical to this business. Why don't we focus on those, get the adaptable platform in place, and begin to build these things in those microcycles, continually providing more and more value and easing the strain, creating the headroom for those business units, and then building that in so the back office has some relief from the pressures of all this new volume coming in. So it's, I guess to summarize, it's getting out in the field, understanding where the value can be created. Don't be afraid to use representative technologies that have already been built in personalized technologies as a way to model that. But then, don't try to build everything. Just focus on the things that create the most value.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, Lloyd. But back to the question from Lisa, right? This term alignment, right? Alignment is the enemy of agility, right? Because if the business has to align and wait for it, thinking to get aligned, and it looks nice, right? But it's exactly what you don't want to have, right? You think as an IT side, as an enabler of the future lines of the business, it should be zigzag, right? Because some parts run faster, some can't run so fast, some are more adaptable, some are more agile. So if you talk about alignment, the whole agility and acceleration conversation is out, because you want alignment and discipline, very good for Germans from the perspective, but doesn't help in this perspective. You have to be agile, you have to be more guerrilla tactics and do the best for each division. And IT is the enabler, right? IT provides the capabilities for that. And IT has to think ahead and not be aligned, but lay the ground for the business to become agile.
I love that you brought up that point, Holger. Can you share some of the common traits you see with organizations that don't have that alignment, rather have the IT usually that enabler? What are some of the common characteristics that they embody that really allow them to become agile?
Yeah, I mean, it's not generally the rule is to avoid alignment is not one size fits all, right? There's tremendous forces in the enterprise from the CIO, CFO, legal side to get in compliance. We do business the same way. It's always the same thing, right? Which does not always work both on the sourcing side, both how things are being manufactured, values being created, or how the value chain manifests itself with customers, because customers are different. So give managers, the second level country managers, sometimes a chance to own their automation destiny. That's where low-code, no-code is a great opportunity for that. And like Lloyd said perfectly, learn from what is missing. This might be the sophisticated way how we do business in Maine or on the Isle of Man. And if they deliver the business results and scalable, it's fine. Secure to a certain point, it's fine. If you want one size fits all, everybody has to use the global ERP rollout of one system where you did the requirements for 6 months, but forgot someone who wasn't in the room or didn't yell loud enough. That's not going to work in a world which is moving so much faster, where business locally have to decide how to automate their business, how to keep their people happy, how to keep their customers happy.
Yeah, you make a very interesting point, Holger. I mean, it's sort of like, think global but act local. So when departmental users in different locales or in different functions, they have deep knowledge of what they know in that particular part of their business, and having the ability for them to act and create more agility and automation they need to do without impacting the global way the business operates. That is easier said than done. Like having the right platform, having the right organizational change management that you can actually allow for those local agility and automation to happen without actually, upsetting the apple cart.
Can you double click on some of the key components of that purpose-built platform and really expand upon why technology really needs to be that enabler of agility?
Yeah, purpose-built platform, with different industries, like I was saying earlier, and Lloyd said it really well. At level 0, procure-to-pay process is a procure-to-pay process. What's so different between a food processor and an aircraft manufacturer? Let me tell you, like, for example, if you're in food processing, let's say you buy truckloads of tomatoes to actually process and make soup, right? So first of all tomatoes don't come in the same shape. They don't have the exact amount of moisture. So you got to really still be able to make what you need to make to have consistency for the consumer. That's problem number one. Second, simpler than that, when the supplier ships a truckload of tomatoes, they weigh it in their weigh scale, and the manufacturer receives that truck. Their weigh scale has a different calibration. There's a difference. That's something unique in that particular industry. Mm-hmm. In a discrete manufacturing, in an aircraft manufacturer, doesn't have that problem. They have a different set of problems. So having the platform be very specific to the capabilities they need in that particular industry is really, really important, because otherwise this is what resulted in huge number of customizations that people had to do to take a horizontal platform and make it work for their industry. And once you do that, in my analogy, it's like pouring concrete, which is exactly the opposite of agility and flexibility that you need.
And then you're stuck in multiple customized, often country divisional ERP instances, and you can't even participate on the innovation your ERP vendor is doing because it's so hard for you to upgrade, right? Which is basically you're on the quicksand of old best practices and customization, which don't allow you to move, right? So not a good situation to be in. Not good for your agility.
No quicksand, no concrete. Lloyd, can you share, we've talked about the journey to Agile, what it takes from a business perspective, from an IT perspective as that enabler, that catalyst. Can you share and double click on some of the ROI that you've achieved so far on this journey that Brock Group is on?
Well, it's a good question. Because there are these microcycles that we're going through, we've achieved about a 30% improvement in some of the back office process flows that are out in the field. We have achieved in invoice processing, in one instance, it's been exponential. We implemented RPA as part of that process to be able to take and decompose a very complex invoice, get the costs allocated out. It used to take us about 3 hours, takes us less than 3 minutes. So lots of discrete little items like that, but probably the biggest one is that field implementation where we've made a pretty tremendous impact where the field has never had that kind of capability before. But I would say what we haven't seen the results yet, is that standardized data structure that's out there that's being collected almost every hour coming into our data lake, where we're going to start to see the benefits as we get more and more data points of that information out, where we'll see it progress into it much more accurate forecasting potential. Where in the past it was just based on what every field location sort of felt and they used their best methods. We're actually taking that data and then utilizing data scientists to help us put in the right large language models to understand what does that really look like, what do we need to be thinking about. That'll tie into our labor forecasting that we utilize. We hire about 12,000 people a year, so it'll help us understand where those labor debt really occurs and what we need to do in advance to get people in for those projects. It'll impact our cash forecasting, so it's going to have an extensive impact. We're just not quite far enough down to really start seeing that take root.
It sounds to me, Lloyd, with what you're describing, the foundation that you've laid at Brock Group for Agile is really solid. You're on the precipice of seeing, you mentioned some amazing measurable results, but you're on the precipice of seeing even greater impact. Do you feel confident in the decisions that you've made to lay this foundation?
No. I'm kidding. No, I do. It was, you go in with your all your experience and all the best, and it's a collaborative effort, with the management team, with our IT leadership group. We feel like this is the best chance we have as a company. It's a construction industry, so real laggard of technology utilization. So stepping forward, I give kudos to all of our senior management team to giving us the opportunity to do it. But we are doing things that this industry has never done before. And the goal is to really enable the entire organization to gain benefit from it. And the one thing that I don't know, we've heard some feedback from some critical customers, but we're taking some of that data and we're starting to do the analysis to show them we can perform much better on your location and get a higher productivity factor. If your site would do these 2 or 3 discrete things, we can improve our productivity factor by 0.2%. And that's the feedback they've been looking for, to be able to say, how do we make our work more predictable? How do we make you more productive? Because that really then makes us, and I call it the electronic tether, using that information, ties us into them as a trusted partner that nobody else can do. And it's going to make it a lot harder to take business away from us.
Holger, I'd love you to share maybe a favorite example of a customer that you've talked to that's been similarly successful to Lloyd's team at Brock Group in terms of really establishing a solid, strong foundation.
Yeah, I can't mention names, right? But I can give you the example of the system landscape, right? So here's a previously mainframe run business, which said, okay, we're going to implement a large ERP vendor with 3 letters. That implementation didn't succeed everywhere. They couldn't do all the countries with that. So they went to another ERP vendor for the smaller countries. And now are in the situation that they have to become a platform-based business. Right, and how to approach that, right? And the traditional approach to that would be, well, we have to pick one ERP, standardize on that, roll that out globally, and it's going to take us 5, 6, 7 years, right? And they went down the other way. They did the same thing what Lloyd said before. They built a lake house, data lake, whatever that is, which was already a huge win for the business, which you cannot even describe. Because for the first time, those silos were breaking down and putting just, it's running in the cloud, of course, right? That's the second key part of that. Just using the standard view of seeing all the information together for the business was a win, which almost justified the project, right? So, and the interesting thing that then they build their new applications customer facing completely in-house on top of that data lake. And they're using the ERP systems in the various country only for compliance reasons, right? They get a bill out of there, they close the books there, and business, the value chain is no longer conducted in any way in that. Now they have the chance that in the longer run, as they go globally rolling this out, to put their new global ERP system from whichever vendor on top of the data in the data lake, which already has all that data, right? So it's a much, much faster way to come again to the gold standard of one global system. Question marks for agility potentially, but that's the part. And the key ingredients are really what Lloyd mentioned already. It's a data lake, lakehouse capability is moving to the cloud. And I'll take the bullet, right? I'm going to say the word here for the first time. It starts with an A, it stands with an I, right? Artificial intelligence. For you to be prepared and be able to run that, you need to have all your data together and you need to be in a place in the cloud. And lastly, the cloud is also very important because you want to tie your IT cost to your business success. And you need to have the elasticity both from the technical side and the commercial side, which the cloud gives you, that if your business is doing well, you can afford to pay more for IT. If your business is not being used, right, see the pandemic, see ups and downturns, whatever might be happening, if you're using it less, you should also be able to pay less for it, which traditional IT computing infrastructures did not allow, right? You were sitting on your hardware, you had your data center, you had to cool it, you had to run it, no matter how many people showed up at work, no matter how many customers ordered something and so on. So those are the 3 recommendations and an example.
Great recommendations. And the road to Agile can have tremendous, huge benefits that are measurable and some of those that even aren't. I want to get practical now, guys, as we kind of come to our 4th topic here. So I want to start with you. What are the first steps that you think leaders need to take on that journey towards really developing a functional, successful Agile business?
I would say that to really look at, there are people on the one side. You got to have an organization that is ready to embrace change and do that forever. It's not a one-time change, that forever businesses continue to evolve, continue to change. So having an organization that is agile to accept that change is the number one thing that you should look at. Number 2 is that I think we said it in so many ways. There are 3 points that come to my mind. One is purposeful platform that supports my industry. That is number one. 2, do I have a data strategy that embraces not just one piece of data from ERP, but it has an all-encompassing data strategy that allows me to set up a platform where data-driven innovation is easy to do, right? That's number 2. Number 3 is having the ability to use the services that are offered by this purposeful platform used in channels that are not non-traditional, meaning that's why APIs are important, right? So I could use it, for example, in the example I earlier said, if I sell my equipment and I provide a subscription service to that customer for maintaining that equipment, I may need to provide a mobile app for the field service engineer on the customer side.
Yeah.
Like, how do I do that, right? So all of these ingredients need to be in place.
Yep.
The people and the technology platform and the purposefulness of that industry specificity, I think, are key ingredients for setting up the foundation for having an agile organization.
Those are great ingredients, great recommendations. I'd love, Lloyd, to get your perspective on how do you bring a team on this agile journey? And we talked a number of times today about purpose-built platform, but also about the fact that organizations do not have time for 3 to 5 year projects. How do you get folks on board?
It's surprising. They want to be there. They just don't know it's possible. So, it goes back to one of the earlier responses Holger had about, the way the state of technology today enables us to do things that we have not ever been able to do at the speed that we've never been able to do it at. And so from an organization perspective, when you introduce them to just give them an example, kind of give them a showcase, a pilot, so they can understand, and then they go through that human action model pretty quickly. The IT organization tends to want to be there. That they want to provide value. It's the days of having the concept of programmers in the basement in the dark, and you throw them pizza and a Mountain Dew, and they just want to code. They're still there. They enjoy the process, but they also want to know that what they're doing is providing value. I find that the younger generation of programmers are really, I'll use an old term, they're really cool. They really get it. They want to try. They want to be a part of success. They want to know that they're contributing to something unique. And so they really get pretty jazzed up about seeing these little cycles and that they've provided that capability as what they do. So I think the key is for the business is pilot it, give them that little nugget that shows them what's possible, that gets them past the fear factor. And then typically, at least from what I've seen, the IT group is there. They're just waiting for the opportunity.
Enable them to show that value. Holger, for you, what's the number one thing that you think organizations should be doing and embracing to evolve their technology stacks to really embrace Agile?
It's really hard to just have one number one thing, right? But I mean, Soma and Lloyd said very key things, right? I mean, obviously look for the right ERP system, right? Purpose-built, whatever. So the more out of the box you can get from your ERP system, the more choices it gives you, right? Well, if it fits 80%, right, you can do more things than it fits only 60%, and you have to fill the 80, 90% with customizations. And that can give you then the agility to do the strategic things and feed your developers pizza and Mountain Dew to build the missing pieces or enable your business to do that. And I like really what Lloyd said, right? You enable the business and then you take back and sit and watch from IT side, right? So you have to think about what technology is relevant and show them how that works. And to get that right on the AI side is going to be really the recipe for more agility and more acceleration for the enterprise going forward.
Lloyd, let's wrap up this conversation with talk about risk. It's inevitable, right? How do you, in your organization, how do you manage risk with the opportunities that Agile delivers?
Every company has its own risk profile, and that's part of what you do in your initial assessment is try to figure out, what's the risk profile look like for this organization. And sometimes it can change on a temporary basis when they find themselves dramatically behind industry norms or acceptable performance, and they're willing to take more risk. Sometimes they're in a much more established industry and they really want to be much more status quo. So it's really important to assess the risk of the organization and put an appropriate path forward. So it's one of those, it is not a one size fits all. It's very individualistic to the company and the industry.
That's a great point. It isn't one size fits all, as we were talking about with platforms. Soma, give us kind of paint a picture of one, from a risk standpoint, where it can all go wrong, but where it can all go right as well.
Yeah, I mean, where can it go wrong? I mean, things can go wrong if the platform's not the right platform. That certainly is a risk. Second is if the organization is really not ready to change, that's a risk. But you can mitigate that, right? So how well you can bring your team members along, that is doable. But what can go right is that, I think Lloyd said it earlier, nobody wants to wait for 5 years to see results. People believe in things if they see incremental progress and they see results, right? So that is what we are talking about in terms of having an agile platform, having purpose-built, capability, all of those things. In addition to that, I would say, we didn't talk too much about this, having composability, right? So having a composable platform allows for you to actually incrementally deploy capabilities, not have to wait for a long period of time to see progress. That once you start to see some incremental progress, the belief will set in.
Yes.
Then more people will want to get into that journey.
It's a flywheel.
Right? And it's a flywheel, exactly.
Yes.
So that is really a possibility. I mean, we think about Gen AI. No one was talking about Gen AI in 2022. All of a sudden, there's billions of dollars of investment going into Gen AI. Everybody's talking about Gen AI. If your platform was built in a way that allows for new innovations to be embraced without having to refactor, that's the best thing you can do. Like, do I have the crystal ball what's in the future in 5 years from now, what's going to be in the market? I don't. But what you do want to know is that, do you have the agility and flexibility in the platform that you can embrace new things as they evolve?
Absolutely. It's all about embracing new things as they evolve. Gentlemen, it's been such a pleasure having you on the program, defining an agile business, what it takes to get there, how you're managing risks, the challenges that you're combating. We appreciate your insights and your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
And that wraps up today's episode of Double Click. A huge thank you to our guests, Lloyd, Holger, and Soma, and to all of you who joined us today. Goodbye for now, and we'll see you next time.